Hey friend, welcome to Authentic Performance, the podcast. My name is Nat and I'm your host. At Authentic Performance, our mission is to provide education and advocacy for all athletes, developing awareness surrounding identity, purpose, and health, so athletes can live well beyond their sport. This week, our guest is Taylor Surrell. Taylor is a senior at Grand Canyon University studying exercise science with the hope to go into occupational therapy. She also happens to be my roommate and very close friend. Taylor's faith is super important to her, so you'll get to hear some of her testimony as well as her health journey with fibromyalgia. She is such a blessing to me, and I know her wisdom will be a blessing to you as well. Enjoy our chat. Okay, welcome Taylor. I'm so excited to have you. Just for a little bit of background, Taylor and I met about a year ago. We were roommates, didn't know each other before moving in together, but quickly became really good friends, and now we're going to be roommates again.
Woohoo.
And so excited for senior year together. But yeah, Taylor, I want to give you a chance to tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, first off, I want to say thanks for having me. I'm excited for it. Never done anything like this, so it's different, but it's fun. And I'm sure we're gonna be great. You're gonna be great, so I'm excited.
Thank you.
But yeah, so a little bit about myself. Like Nat said, I go to college, so gonna be a senior, 21. I'm from Southern California. Um, I'm an only child, so maybe you'll pick up on the only child things, but I hope not. I've been told I don't act like an only child, so hopefully that's the case. Um, I am also a Christian. I've been Christian my whole life, been raised in the church. My parents are both pastors. Dad has other jobs as well, but mainly pastors. So I'm a pastor's kid, PK at heart. Um, it's funny because currently I'm actually up at camp leading worship for junior high and high school. So love worship and love music, stuff like that. But more along the sports line of things, I grew up playing soccer and volleyball, and then in high school kind of stopped with that, which sure we'll get into that. And then started doing like CrossFit, and then 2019 I did a bodybuilding competition, and then now we're here, gonna graduate, looking into occupational therapy or training of some sort. But yeah, I guess that's a little bit about me.
Yeah,
So
love it.
yeah.
Well, we'll just dive in. You said a little bit about like the shifting of sports. So can you just give us a little glimpse into your health journey and what it looks like to have an autoimmune disease? Because I know you're super open
Yeah.
about that journey for you. So just a little glimpse into what that's like.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, first off, like growing up doing sports and stuff, like nutrition wasn't really like a thing, like you kind of just train. As a kid, you have fun. Like you're there to for practices to train and have fun and like win. You want to win all the time. But then as I got older, I actually did develop an autoimmune disease, and I had to quit. Volleyball was like my main sport at the time in high school, and well, actually like eighth grade more so. And that was super hard for me. I still go through things like every day or every other day or weeks. Sometimes I have flare ups and stuff like that. But ultimately, like health, because I do have like an autoimmune disease, health is so important, whether that's exercise, nutrition, even mentally as well. Like it's so crucial for me to be in my word, be in the Bible, and just pull scripture out, say it every day, like so my mental health can be where like the best it can be too. So not only physical health but mental health is super important to me when I do have an autoimmune disease. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I I just want to say before we even get further, like I admire you so much for how you manage it, and just like the grace that you have, the way that you go about it. I mean, obviously, I've only been a part of your life for a year, but just watching you navigate that, like I couldn't imagine doing it, but yeah, it's truly inspirational. I mean that it's I know that it's tough for you, and obviously like I've been around when it's not a good day necessarily, but it's wild how you still turn those into, good days,
Mm.
just with obviously like your personality and
Mm.
your faith in the Lord is just awesome. So with that, I want to ask, like, what are some ways that you've learned to manage your symptoms, like through exercise, nutrition, etc.?
Yeah. So my specific like autoimmune disease is fibromyalgia, and then I do have some like just overall inflammation in my body. And so with that, I when I do get really big flare ups, it's mostly like fatigue, like I can't walk or I just don't have any energy. So I'll have to like call off work or like won't be as like active or whatever. So that's like the main thing, but I've learned through, since I guess having it from ninth grade until now, um, that exercise is pretty important for me just to maintain. Like, yes, I do have flare ups, but because I exercise pretty consistently, like 5, 6 days a week, and I'm always just active as much as I can be, I've noticed over the years that it has lessened. And another factor to that, I think, for sure, is nutrition. What I put in my body does fuel me properly. So I like performance just whenever I'm doing daily activities, whatever, it's nutrition plays a big part in that. So that's like, I have a pretty strict diet and stuff like that, but it's like certain amount of carbs and fats and proteins, like your macronutrients and stuff like that. I go, I guess, a little bit more stricter because I am kind of in the realm of bodybuilding and stuff, so I do train for that. But overall, just whole foods, natural, all healthy, just to fuel my body. So it makes me feel good. And then on those off days, like, yes, I do struggle, but once it's over with, we get right back up and we exercise and we eat and we stay on track. So that's what helps for sure. So,
Yeah, it's so cool that like the exercise helps, because I know like we would talk and you would say, I'm not feeling great today, but like I'm gonna go to the gym and see. And sometimes like it would help.
hmm
And like I've had that experience too now, like with my back injury, like I started exercising again and now I'm like experiencing so much less pain than before. So it's
yeah,
crazy what exercise can do, and
for
how,
sure.
I mean, I think in my situation, like how the Lord can kind of use that as a way to heal, where
hmm
like a lot of times, I mean, when I first got my diagnosis and stuff, the doctors said don't exercise, like you need to rest, you need to do this. And sometimes that's not the answer. Like a lot of times exercise and obviously like the nutrition is big for you too. Like that's a major play in healing,
Yeah,
from the inside out.
for sure. Yeah. I was just always bring it back to like your body is a temple, and so like what you put in your body is really essential too. Whether even if you can't like exercise, like you were told not to exercise, just the nutrition piece alone, like it's just so important because we want to do, at least for me and like the other Christians out there, we want to do the Lord's work, and so if we're healthy enough and we take care of our bodies, then like we can make that happen
Yeah,
as
for
best as
sure.
possible, right? So.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Mhm.
the nutrition piece is huge. Just like what I've learned is, like, obviously you want to eat good food so that you're, healthy all around, but even more than that, you want to feel your best. Like you said, like
For sure.
you can't go out and do the things that you need to do if you're not
Mhm.
feeling well, and like that's obviously a big piece of it.
Yeah.
um i I want to know how you have remained so consistent in your training and nutrition, because I mean, obviously we all struggle at times with like discipline and motivation and everything, but I have never met someone so consistent in like the nutrition especially. Like, I mean, seriously, like we will go out to dinner and like Taylor's got her like Tupperware container and I love it. It's awesome because like obviously you're taking care of yourself and doing what you need to
Yeah.
do. And I think that's also cool because obviously like when you're around people, like you want to be your best and feel good and like be able to have
Mhm.
conversations and hang out with people. And so you're doing what you need to do to make sure that you know are feeling good. But
Yeah.
how like what are your methods?
Yeah, it's funny because it's like wherever I go, it's like the running joke, like, oh yeah, Taylor's got her rice cakes today. Like, wow, it's so yummy. Like, even at camp, wow, she got her rice cakes. I'm like, hey, that's what I got to do. But I think personally for me, the the reason why I'm so consistent is because I know how I feel when I'm not consistent. And I have way more flare ups. I just don't feel like myself. Like when, I don't know if I've told you this, but like even when I was first like struggling with everything, like I was just not happy, not myself. And I do have a sort of like bubbly personality, I'd say, and I like to laugh. I like to have fun and just smile all the time. And I wasn't like that for 2 to 3 years. And I was like, I'm done with this. Like, I want to be myself and I want to be happy again. Like, I want to be that bubbly person that people recognize me for. And I, more specifically, like, I want to be that joyful light for the Lord to other people. And so, if I, like, don't eat, like, not necessarily, like, if I go out and eat occasionally, that's okay, but I think just going back to how I felt and used to feel, it's so much it's so much has changed, and I feel so much better when I do stick to my plan and I want to be present and I want to make memories with people and I want to have fun and be that bubbly person. So I think honestly, the past has influenced my present. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes sense. I think something else that you do really well, like just going on that, like the discipline, is like planning. I know that like, I remember having a conversation with someone once and they said, if you fail to prepare, then prepare to fail. And
Mm.
like, just the way you set up your week, like, get like getting enough rest, that's another thing. I know
Mhm.
like it's hard in college to say no to
Yeah.
plans, and
Yeah.
like I know that sometimes people may not fully understand why, but like just the way that you know plan ahead for your nutrition and your training and just making sure that you're like fueling your body and resting, it obviously like really pays off when it matters and throughout the week and everything. I think that's just it's definitely not easy to do. I know.
Yeah, you would
But
know
but
too.
you do it so well. So I really think that's
Yeah,
awesome.
I feel
Um
like it's definitely like your priorities too. Like, what are your priorities within it? Because I know, like, when I was fully in like my bodybuilding gym and like I was prepping for a show, like, that was like what I was surrounded with. So it was easy to have people like help me out too. So it's
yeah.
just like a pattern, and like you're used to it too. But
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
mhm.
glad you brought that up because I was going to ask, like, what kind of support system have you had? I mean, I know your parents, they're awesome.
Yeah,
But what does that look like over the even last couple of years?
yeah. I think for sure my parents, like I've told you multiple times, like my parents are my best friends. And I know that's not common for a lot of people, but I do think that because of all my health issues that I've gone through, like, and having the Lord, that's like been my number one too, for sure. But having the Lord and my parents and just honestly just praying constantly and just being that shoulder to lean on. My parents for sure have been there. I think it definitely helps that I was an only child too, so that they could really like pour into me too, just even as a little kid. But like while I was going through like that really hard time, like my parents for sure were like my backbone, and even my grandparents as well. So yeah, I'd say parents and the Lord and my church family for sure. And then during the time when I did bodybuilding, for sure, like some of the other athletes there, like within a different realm of like not health issues, but like for a show, like that was my support during that time
Yeah,
too. But
yeah, that's
yeah.
super cool. Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, obviously you're very open about your faith. And I know you say like I'm a believer first. Obviously that's a huge part of your life. So I want to shift a little bit into that. So can you tell
Yeah.
us kind of just a little bit of your testimony? What
Yeah.
obviously it's a long journey, but just a little bit of what brought you to the Lord.
Yeah, so like I said a little bit earlier, I was raised in the church. I've been at the same church like my whole life. So yeah, 21 years. Um, Mom's children's pastor, dad's a pastor as well. And I guess I didn't really fully realize like who the Lord was or like why am I going to church until I was like 5 years old. And I remember specifically like my dad sat me down. We were sitting on the floor and he goes, "Well, do you want to like accept Jesus?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I feel like 5 years old was when I fully like said yes to Jesus and I could comprehend what that meant, right? But of course, when you get older as well, it like changes. You go through harder things and stuff like that, or like you, yeah, just like life throws curveballs at you, and you're like, "Is God, are you there? Like, are you even, are you present?" So I'd say growing up, I always felt the Lord and His presence and all of that. Like, I always felt really close to Him. And then when I did start having all my health stuff, that was just a wave of emotions and questioning, and at some points, just even anger that I'd never felt towards the Lord. But even like my mom in the midst of it was like, it's okay to be mad at the Lord sometimes because this is a sinful world, unfortunately, and sometimes bad things happen, but that is not the Lord. And so we just would I remember just quote scripture and stuff like that. And, you know, I have a tattoo on my wrist. It's James 1, 2 through 4 in Hebrew. And it's consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds, because the testing of your faith produces perseverance and hope. And so that verse has just stuck with me so clearly. And um, definitely that hard time challenged my faith, but I never let go. And I always think too, like, if I was not a Christian going through all of my health stuff, I don't know if I would be here, honestly. God is my hope. And if you don't have the Lord, like, I just cannot comprehend, like, you have no hope. Like, um, and so I think just now, just seeing the just the fruit that has come from that, I would never trade it for the world. Like it was hard. I didn't like I went to three different high schools. I went to private school and then for freshman year, and then I had to leave because I was physically unable to even walk or move because I was just at the time I didn't know fully what it was. And then sophomore year, I was homeschooled because I again wasn't able to. And then I tried public school. I think I went to total like 3 months of school, maybe. Somehow got a like 3.9 GPA, and I think right there is the Lord's hand because there is no way that I don't even know how that happened honestly, but I'm like, okay, but seeing like the fruit that the Lord's like, even I remember like my mom specifically praying over me and saying like, God, whatever is lost in this time, would you multiply it? And there, I know that there's a scripture in the Bible that's just like you multiply things, and even then, I feel like now like the Lord has multiplied my knowledge, like the stuff that I know, like I never would have been able to comprehend, but I think that's the Lord's grace in the time that was lost. He's given me even more than I could have imagined, and yeah, I feel like that's mainly what it is. Just the Lord is so good, and you might go through hard, challenging times and question all, and that's normal, very, very normal. And just knowing that He's always there for you in the highs and the lows of your life. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's it's so special to I mean, first of all, like just your perspective on it is obviously incredible, because to go through all of that and still, trust in the Lord is, I mean, I think that those trials obviously are what strengthen the relationship with the Lord. But I also just think it's so cool because, like, right when I was going through a lot of my issues with my back, like, that's when you came into my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you had it down by that point. Like, you were so confident in like what the Lord was doing in your life, even when you had flare
Mm-hmm.
ups or, whatever would come your way. Um, and so I think that was a huge motivator for me to keep trusting and just fully surrendering. And so I think that's definitely a way that like the Lord's using you, not even just with me, but with other people. Like, hopefully people that are listening to this will hear it and say, wow, like, she's gone through so much, but like, yet she still believes that God is good. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's just such a powerful thing.
Yeah.
um
I definitely think that the Lord can use you in any circumstance. That's what I firmly believe in that. Um, but yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Um, so my next question was, how has your faith grown as you've had these difficulties? But you kind of covered that. So I would say, like, what does it look like for you to fully surrender your circumstances, whatever that may be? Like, if someone's listening and is like, I am really struggling with this, whether it be health, relationships, decisions that need to be made, whatever, like, how do you fully surrender to the Lord?
Hmm. Honestly, I think my mom did a really good job at implementing this. Even my dad, like, just fully surrendering to me would be every morning waking up and I do this every morning. I love it. I wake up and I'm like, okay, God, like, today's gonna be a good day. What do you have for me? What do you want to show me today? My ears are open, my eyes are open. Like, let just it's your will. Let your will be done today. And I try to do that every morning, even as I'm just walking around throughout my day, because I feel like fully surrendering is not just when you're going through a hard time. It's also like it's every day. Like, because I don't know, just to have a relationship with the Lord, to me is so important. And then again, just quoting scripture, remembering scripture, and just surrendering that way to, like, okay, God, what does your word say about even me? Because sometimes I need to be built up. So how can I build myself up to build other people up and just fully have your way today? So I feel like I would do that mostly.
Yeah,
So
love it.
yeah. Hmm.
Um, I'm curious, also with your faith, but a little bit different. What role does your faith have in kind of your aspirations, like what you're doing? Because obviously you um, are super passionate about sharing Jesus with other people. But I know you're studying exercise science and have plans for the future. So what does your faith look like in that?
Yeah, so I love this question because I was like, oh, I don't, that, I would have to think about that one. So I like prayed about it a little bit, to be honest. I was like, yeah, God, like, how are you using me to, like, my journey in the future? And what I came up with, well, what the Lord put through me, it was I wrote it down. It said, if God believes in me, I can believe in myself. And I can have the full confidence knowing that God will provide, and that He'll make a way for me and lead me in the right direction. One verse that like came to my mind too is Isaiah 22:22. It says, I will place on His shoulder the key to the house of David. What He opens, no one can shut, and what He shuts, no one can open. And I did have that prayed over me a while back, and I think that just stuck with me, for a while, and still does. Like, whatever I'm doing, it's for the Lord, and it's been cool to see. Like, it's just crazy how the Lord works because of all the stuff that I've gone through. I've just run towards nutrition and fitness and all of that, And through that, like even going through physical therapy and occupational therapy, because we didn't know what it was at first, just meeting with all those people and having those sessions to be like, Taylor, this is what you're actually supposed to do. Like, I know that this has been a really hard time for you, but this is something I've given you. You have a passion for this and you should go for this. And so it's been cool to be like, I had a hard time, struggled with things, but in the midst of it, in the middle of it, like now I'm on the other side and like I'm going to be able to help people too. And so I know that like this is a door that the Lord's has opened for me. And I have full confidence knowing in that, knowing that God will provide. So, yeah,
Yeah, I feel like the people that have experienced the things that they're trying to like teach people in are you're the best teacher, because obviously like
mhm,
you've been through it, you know what it's like to have to make those changes and just kind of embrace what that next thing looks like.
for sure.
So I think just the way that you've experienced it is obviously attributing to how you'll be able to impact other people in the future. And I think obviously that's a work of the Lord. Like I feel the same way, obviously like I was super into sports and like I thought I was going to continue playing basketball
Yeah,
forever in my
yeah,
mind. Obviously that wasn't the case, but now I have such a passion for being there for the people that have gone through the same thing, which is
yeah,
exactly what you're saying too. Like, and that I don't even think, even if you don't work with someone who has the same struggles or experience, I think just having that knowledge,
hmm,
and especially just like the confidence that you have in who you are in the Lord, like that stuff
hmm,
is going to be so valuable for whoever you're working with. I think it's
yeah.
just so awesome.
I definitely feel like there's a sense of like compassion that you bring to the table too
Oh,
for other, I don't know, just for other people like that haven't gone through harder times, but if you have gone through a hard time, you're able to show more compassion and I know for sure like the patients do feel that, or whoever your clients, whoever you're working with or for, like they'll feel it for
yeah.
sure, which is so cool.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Yeah, I
yeah.
I'm super excited to see what you end up doing and what that looks
Mm,
like, but whatever it is, I know like you just have such a heart for service. And I think that comes from, what you've been through, but I think people could definitely go one of two ways. Like you could go through really hard stuff and be bitter, or you can take it and use it to bring
yeah,
glory to God.
yeah,
So,
mm, for
okay.
sure.
Well, I want to transition into talking a little bit more about fitness because I know that's a big thing for you. So, can you talk to us a little bit about what it was like to transition from like playing those team sports to then going into CrossFit and then bodybuilding and doing more of the individual thing?
Yeah, so that was a huge shift for me. Kind of similar to you, actually. Like in eighth grade, I had to quit sports because of my health, and so that was a huge like identity crisis. I was like, "What am I doing with my life? Like, who am I?" And I'm like, of course, in junior high too. You're like when you're the most confused. You're like,
Yes.
"Great, okay, cool, awesome." Um, but it so I took a few years off of like obviously volleyball and stuff, and that was really really hard for me. Because yeah, like you said, you lose your identity sometimes. But after I started feeling a little bit better and kind of realized that exercise helped, I got into CrossFit. I was actually sophomore or junior. So I slowly started getting into CrossFit at like 16, kind of after I stopped volleyball because I that was when I realized, okay, exercise is good for me, even if it's like 2 or 3 days a week, you know. Um, so I went to my first class alone, 16-year-old me, crazy. I don't know why I did that. I don't even know how I had the confidence to go up. Like all these people are doing like 350 like deadlifts or like some crazy things like that. I'm like, what am I here for? Like, what am I doing? Um, but it was fun. I did it for like 2 years, and I competed in like two different. It was like the CrossFit Open. I don't know if like anyone listening knows what it is, but it's like happens yearly, and it's pretty cool. Got fully like submerged into that, and like trained for that, and it was cool to see. Like it is an individual sport, but you could also do like a team if you want as well. But I did it individually. I just kind of did it for fun, and I did cross it because I wanted to compete again. Well, no, to feel good. But then as soon as I like got stronger and stronger, I was like, I kind of want to compete. Like this would be cool. Um, and so that was really cool. And then during, I think it was actually during COVID or after COVID time, like 2020, end of 2020 ish, or something like that, 2021. Um, yeah, I can't remember the years honestly, but I was like, I want to do something different. I yeah, I just want to do something different, and I want to compete in a different way, and like performance wise, I want to just switch it. And so I looked up online. I was like bodybuilding gym, and there was one like 15 minutes from my house, and little old me again. I think I was like what 19? Yeah, I was 19. Um, and I emailed the guy, and he goes, "Yeah, come on into the gym." I was like, "Okay." So like that week, I came into the gym, and there's like all these jacked people. I'm like, "What am I doing here?" Like I don't know anything. Like I have the CrossFit bulk, like that type of build, and these people are all like shredded, like just ripped. It's crazy. I was yeah, it was crazy. But I trained with them, and I fell in love with the sport. And I know that there's like certain things that people are against, like, a lot of them do unfortunately take steroids, but over time, that I'm not saying use steroids, but these athletes, they're professional athletes that I ended up training with, and they do like all sorts of blood work, and like they are very they focus on their health. Like you're a bodybuilder, you do focus on your health, so you are using it wisely. The ones that are professional, but I never took any, so I'm good there. I do will not. But yeah, that was really cool. I trained with them for 6, 7 months for my show, and I was like, I want to do it, coach. I'm gonna fully commit. And he was really hesitant because I was like one of the youngest athletes that he's kind of trained before, because everyone's kind of like late 20s, 30s and above. Like there's all divisions, all levels, all ages, stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I did my first competition, and I got like top 5 out of my class, and then third in my other class. But honestly, I just did it to have fun and like try something new. I never would have thought that I would have done that ever. Because again, I was a pretty introverted kid. So me going up on stage and doing my little routine, and that I never would have thought I would have done that. But now I want to do it again. Like I'm training, I'm still training. It's harder to do in school and stuff to like do a show because they are pretty expensive. But once you do it, it's kind of addicting, and then the community around is really cool too. But honestly, it's an individual sport, but the people around you are like your team, kind of. So it's like soccer, volleyball, you're in a team, you all want to win, and then bodybuilding is more of, we're going to encourage you, we're going to train with you, we're going to lift you up, you're going to build that confidence in yourself. And I feel like confidence is the biggest thing in bodybuilding, and that was something that was cool because I could bring in the Lord into that too. And I met a lot of bodybuilders that were Christians themselves, and they're like, I know I have confidence in the Lord through this sport, and that was just really cool, to just talk with all the athletes about that. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool too that you can find that community anywhere. Like I think sometimes we put like God in a box where it's like, oh, like we go to church and that's where we hang out with our Christian friends or, whatever, but to see like that entering into a different environment, like that's super cool.
Hmm.
And then also I love that you said like it's a little bit of a competitive, like a way for you to be competitive, because I know like we we played a lot of card games and a lot of um just games. Yeah, I mean in
All
general,
the
like
time.
even pickleball, like anything. We and Taylor Taylor is a competitive person. Like she seems really nice here and sweet. Once we add like some kind of competition to it, like goes out the window. Like
I don't
unless
know
you're
if we
on her
could really,
team.
yeah.
I
We
mean,
can't be friends when we're competing against each other. And then we can be friends afterwards.
yeah, yeah, of
But
course.
yeah, yeah. But I feel
No,
like you're kind of the same way though too. So that's why we're
yeah,
friends.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I just love though
works
that
out.
you get to use that as like the competitiveness, like, and I've found like I miss the competitive nature of basketball, but
Mhm.
I mean, I think there's other things that you can kind of channel that into. Like last summer, I ran a 10K with my mom, and like,
Yeah.
were we the first ones? No, we were not. We were not as trained as everyone else. But it was so fun to like have a goal, and like I think that's obviously super big for you too, of like
Yeah.
this is the end goal, like this is how I'm going to get there, and just like enjoying the process too. Like
Yeah.
it's not all about getting to the goal, but like the competitiveness of like showing up every day and just trying to be a better version of yourself in whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, I want to know what made you choose to study exercise science. I mean, I know you've talked a lot about your health and obviously like you were an athlete and stuff, but what is kind of the driving factor for that?
Yeah. So I think, like I said, a lot of it plays a part with my health and stuff, and realizing that fitness and nutrition is really important, just for anyone, honestly, just to feel good in their own skin. Like I feel like that's a never-ending thing for everyone. Like we just want to be confident in ourselves and our own bodies and stuff like that. Even if you have the Lord, like sometimes we all have insecurities, right? And so I feel like if I can even, my first thought was like, I want to be a personal trainer, or like I want to be a sports performance and exercise coach, for like athletes, and like help them like just be strong in their sport and stuff like that. And so that kind of sparked my interest. Originally, I was going to do like kinesiology, but at Grand Canyon, it was exercise science was what they offered, and I was like, well, it's easier, so we're going to go that route. But yeah, I think just the whole love of, even now I'm thinking about it, even like the fact that you can change your body. This is the biggest thing for me in bodybuilding, is like the fact that you can change your body to however technically you want it to be if you're disciplined and strict. There's the catch. But if you're disciplined and strict, like you you can make it happen. Um, but yeah, I feel like that. But then also, I really want to help other people that are struggling, and specifically, like I'm going into occupational therapy. I switched it from physical therapy to occupational therapy last year, but just being able to help people deal with their physical ailments, or even in occupational therapy, you deal a lot with mental or cognitive issues as well. And so that was something that really sparked my interest, and I specifically want to do pediatrics. And so just being that like person that I can help kids, and kids can confide in and seek help from. I think that was the biggest thing for me. And our bodies are insane, and there's so much to learn about them. And obviously, bringing it back to the Lord again, just how intricate our bodies are, and how intricately he made our bodies. It's insane. Like I'm like, God, how, what were you even thinking? Like just how everything works, and how it's crazy. So it's always just interested me, um, how the Lord's made us, and how we can tweak things here and there to like be the best version of ourselves, or our performance can excel because we did certain things. So yeah, that's always just
Yeah,
sparked my interest.
yeah,
So
for sure. Um,
Mm-hmm.
do you have any tips for athletes or just anyone that's trying to improve their health, starting out in the gym or even with just trying to eat better foods, more whole foods? Do you have any tips for those
Yeah.
people?
I'd say if I know a lot of it, it's hard because if you do want to get like professional help, like a lot of the times it does cost some money. Again, like for me, it was like where my priority was, and at the time, like specifically for my show, like I saved up, I worked like full time, and I saved up enough money to do that. And but with that being said, like I think even finding someone that maybe knows a little bit more than you in the gym, and going with them to the gym, seeing how they work out, or just having them show you things, and then from there, like for me personally, it's funny because this summer I've actually been writing a few workout programs for a few of my like family friends and stuff. I'm like, if you could find some people like that too. But overall, just what are your goals, and then even just look up simple like exercises. Like, okay, I have a website, but it's exrx.net, and there's like a ton of workouts, and exercises that, like, if ever you don't know what to do, like just look on there. But if you're more strict with exercises and stuff and get familiar with gym equipment, I definitely say like split up your workouts. So if you're doing like 4 days, do 2 upper body days and 2 leg days, or you can make it however broad or specific you want it to be. Mine are pretty specific on like my goals and what I want to grow for like my show that I want to eventually do. So that for exercise, say like have fun with it. Maybe find someone that knows a little bit more than you if you are first starting out, and then just like look up Google. Google's like your best friend sometimes, like exercises, and then honestly picking what 5 to 6 exercises to do, based on what that day is, and that's like an easy step. Obviously, the more in depth you go, the more in depth it becomes, but and then nutrition, like you kind of said earlier, like whole foods, staying away roughly from, processed foods and sugary stuff, and fried things. Um, and it was funny because I actually talked with my coworkers earlier, and they were asking me a bunch of questions about this. They're like, "So we can't eat out ever?" And I was like, "No, no. It's like obviously it's based on your goals. What do you want? If you want to get shredded, then yeah, like maybe once a week or not even. Like for my show, I had like maybe 3 cheat meals within like 6, 7 months. That's insane. Though. That's another level. But I say it's all in moderation. Honestly, like I like how some people split it up with a 80-20. So 80% is like whole foods, natural fruits, veggies, good amount of protein. Eat your protein if you want to build muscle and stuff. That's pretty good. Carbs and fats, like carbs, what? Rice cakes, rice, oatmeal, fats or avocados, any nut butter, etc., whatever. But yeah, 80% whole natural foods, stuff like that, veggies, and then like 20% if you want to go out with your friends and like eat out, you can do that. It's all in moderation. Just be mindful of what you're putting into your body. So
Yeah.
yeah, with that, it's good.
I yeah, I think the place where a lot of people get kind of hung up is like that it's so complicated, but I know like for you, like you eat a lot of the same things.
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of gotten into that too where like you kind of just have to find what you like of what is, probably better for you. Like for me,
Mm-hmm.
like when I go grocery shopping, like for the week, I'll pick out like a couple proteins, a couple
Mm-hmm.
veggies, a couple, sources of carbs, and then just kind of build my meals that way. Like it really can be simple. It's definitely not easy, but it
Mm-hmm.
can be simple. You just have to
Yeah,
start somewhere.
I think it's the simplicity that people don't like, because
Yeah.
it like simplicity in terms of like food. The food can be so simple, and you eat it often, and you could switch around things like what you said, your types of proteins and carbs and fats. And it is maybe at times a little bit boring, but like it's what you want. Like, what are your goals? Again, it all comes down to what are your goals. But Yeah,
Yeah,
I
for
agree.
sure. Well, I will
Hmm.
definitely link that website that you talked
Yeah,
about,
for
so
sure.
people
Send
can
it to
check it
you.
out. Um, I want to ask if you have anything else that you want to add before our last question that everyone gets to answer on the podcast.
I feel like just be if you're a person that is like going through something hard, whether you're a Christian or not, like find a support group for sure, like some people that you can confide in. And don't get discouraged because there is always light at the end of the tunnel. And you do have a plan and a purpose for your life, whether you see it now or later. Um, yeah, I think that everyone is very unique in their own ways. Everyone has a story. Don't be afraid to like ask other people their story because it can inspire you. Like I remember asking Nat, like, and I know I haven't heard her full story. I feel like mainly, but like I'm sure there's bits and pieces that I haven't heard. But I'm like, I'm gonna ask you again. But just like, it's such an encourager to hear other people's stories, that I can lift each other up because we're all meant to be one family, you know? Especially as Christians, we're under the body of Christ. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and I hope that this podcast can kind of be that for people. Like obviously, I want you to be able to share your story because I mean, I think other people are going to be so encouraged by it. But I especially think it's important for athletes. Like, I know for me, like, getting to kind of share what I went through and my journey with sports. I mean, obviously, like, most athletes, like, that's your life. Like, you talked about, like,
Hmm.
the identity piece. I think now, being like a former athlete, it like giving myself and others the chance to share your story gives you a little bit of closure and kind of working into like the next area of life. And for me, I was just talking even with my brother like about what this journey looks like and how like it's not my story, it's God's story, but just now looking back at it and getting to like talk with other people about it, like I just pray that that's encouraging because like God is so good to work both of our stories. Like obviously you have a very similar, approach now of just like what I've been through has brought me to where I am now, and like that's the way that the Lord works. So I think
Yeah,
that's just super special.
yeah, it's awesome.
Okay, last question. The question that everyone gets to answer. Obviously, the podcast is called Authentic Performance, and that's my business working with athletes. So I want to know, what does it look like for you to live authentically?
Hmm. Well, I'm going to bring it to the Lord again. But I would say being authentically me, it's whoever the Lord has called me to be. Whether that's honestly the characteristics of God or of Jesus. Even if you read the stories, like the New Testament of like Jesus's life, just being real, just being loving, being compassionate, being engaging with people, just yeah, just be real, be open, be willing. Yeah, I feel like the Lord, is definitely so good. And yeah, like I said earlier, like everyone is different. Everyone's answer is going to be different because he has created everyone so differently. But just again, even the fruits of the spirit, we love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control, all of those incorporated into my life. Just be those things. Strive to be those things. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
I know that this conversation is going to bless someone in some way. Just hearing your story is so encouraging, and um, you're just a joy to the world. So I'm super grateful for you as a friend, and just can't wait for people to get to hear your wisdom.
Well, thanks for having me. It was so much fun. And I hope well, I know that everyone else will be listening to all your podcasts because you're amazing. And she started her own business while doing summer school and all these things. That's amazing.
Oh, thank
So,
you.
but yeah, thank you for having me. Like, it's so cool, so fun. So I'm glad I got to do it. So.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. We would love to hear what you found valuable in this episode. So please DM us on Instagram at Authentic Performance or leave a review. They're super, super helpful for us. We're so thankful that you're on this journey with us and want to invite you to be a part of the Authentic Performance fam. You can check out more of how we're supporting athletes at theauthenticperformance.com. Also, let us know what you want to hear on the podcast next or who you want to hear. We appreciate your feedback and want to give you the best possible resources and support. In the meantime, think about how you can live authentically. See you next time.